This is Ian Pruckner. You're listening to or watching another episode of the Byproduct podcast. I'm so excited to be here with you, spending a few minutes together with you, getting better together, because when we get better, things get better. And I'm excited to be here today with a guest and friend of mine, Justin Prince. Justin, what's up, my friend? How are you today? Thank you so much for being here.
Brother, thanks for having me on. Love the value you add and the great work you're doing in the world. So I'm honored to be on with you.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate your time. You just came from the All-Star game, just got in a little while ago. And so how was that experience? Pretty amazing?
Yeah, so my youngest is my son. He's 10, and he's like loosely into basketball, but I wanted to just go spend the time with him, So we went up there the Saturday night. They did like the dunk contest and stuff, which was a blast, and he got like all into it. And then check this out. So last night we go up to the game. He's doing great. We go to like the little activities they have before the game. Then we go to the game, and he's just like, I could see him like slumping in his seat. He's like, Dad, I don't feel so good. I'm like, you all right, bud? Anyways, like, I think I need to go to the bathroom, So anyway, we go, and he like throws up on the way to the bathroom. I'm like, oh, geez, here we go. So, but I also thought maybe, you know how it is. Sometimes you get it out and then you feel better, So he's like, hey, let's go sit back down. A few minutes later, he's like, dude, I don't feel so good. So anyway, long story short, he was up. We left the game early. We never really saw the game really that much. Left the game early, went home. He was sick all night, up all night, then woke up this morning early to get home for this. And I had some people coming over. And so it was totally one of those like dad, full any mom or dad would know this, but those times where like you have all these plans and then, the plans don't go the way you thought they were going to go.
It's the epic fail.
It was still a good experience.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Well, Justin, listen, I appreciate your time today. For our audience listening, so you're a serial entrepreneur. You've been in the business game for a long time. You have just so much wisdom, so much leadership that you've really won in a hard-fought way over a period of decades now. And I'm going to have you tell a little bit of your story, but running a business right now has done over $2.4 billion in sales. You're impacting tens and tens of thousands of people all over the world through your business, through your leadership, through some of the events that you run. So it's really an honor to have you here. But take us back in time. Like, who is Justin Prince? Where'd you come from? What are those things that you've gone through that have made you into that person that you are today?
Yeah, I love the name of your podcast, Byproduct, because I'm a byproduct, of the school of hard knocks for sure, and a byproduct of great leaders and great mentors. Aristotle says, if I've seen further, it's only by standing on the shoulders of giants. And I feel like that's kind of what's happened is I've both from afar and then personally, like intimately, been able to work with great people. But came from I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah, kind of middle-class family growing up. My folks got divorced when I was 12. I was my mom's oldest. And so moved in with my mom. We moved 13 times in the next 7 years. I was raised by single parents, but lived at my mom's house. And, had really no professional background. I was making pizzas. I was doing construction work. I at age 20, 21, I started selling cartoon Bible videos at the mall. And I tease people, the mall's where all of us older people our age used to go when the Amazon was a river. We'd go to this place called the mall, And so I was the guy you guys tried to not make eye contact with, because they would try and like suck you into their mall kiosk. And I had no college education. I had big dreams. I had big goals. I kind of wanted to be somebody with my life, but I, didn't really have a ton of opportunity really at that point. I was trying to maximize what I did have. And when I was 25, I was introduced to my first business. The short story is I succeeded. I was distributing nutritional products, and I succeeded doing it. But I became like the number 3 earner in this company. I became the national spokesperson, but the company we were distributing for went out of business. Like one day we were in business, one day we weren't. So it left me in a really precarious financial situation. I was like below zero financially, back on credit cards, back on taxes. I'd taken multiple steps backwards in my income with the sales job to the idea was to take multiple steps forward, with your career, your business. And I kind of got caught right in that transition time. And so, it was a really kind of a humbling time. I moved my pregnant wife and our now 2 babies into the loft above my wife's parents' garage. So I'm a grown man. I'm 27 years old. I live in the United States of America. I have 2 part-time jobs. I live in the loft of my wife's parents' garage. My 2 kids sleep in the closet. My wife and I are sleeping in the bedroom. I remember many nights coming home and being like, 1 in the morning. It's pitch black in the room. I'm like, are you awake? My wife's like, yeah. She goes, are you awake? I said, yes. I go, am I crazy? Like, am I chasing a fake dream? Like, is this ever going to happen for us? Yeah. Like, I know it happens for other people, but is it going to ever happen for us?
Wow.
And, here we are. I ultimately kind of figured that business out, built a multi-million-dollar business. I was speaking all over the world when I was 29. I remember speaking in Moscow and Omsk, Russia, and Almaty, Kazakhstan, the former Soviet Union. I was like living this dream that was once just a dream. Ended up selling that business when I was 29. For the next 2 years, I did private equity consulting. And then my current business, it was a really tricky spot how this whole thing started. I came into a company that was 25 years old. It was a multiple $100 million a year business, but it had 8 years of declining revenue. So its revenue was going the wrong direction for 8 consecutive years, compounding. And so when we came in, it was not in great shape. So we were kind of tasked with both a turnaround. We had to turn around this current business, but then it was also a startup. We kind of like ripped it to the floorboards and then like rethought of like what could we turn this thing into, like use some of the good assets and get rid of the rest. And we literally ripped this company to the floorboards and started again. And we created a brand and a business model, a super simple sharing model with $10 discount codes. And in that model, it took us about 4 years. For the first 4 years, we grew every year, but it was like incremental growth. It was like 1 step forward, 2 back, 2 forward, 1 back. You're kind of growing, but it was just grinding. And we kind of caught a gear, through 2017 and 18 and 19 and beyond. And, we've acquired over 4 million customers. We've done over 2.4 billion in revenue, you kind of mentioned. And it's just turned into an incredible business, an incredible journey. And I feel like that business is just kind of getting started. And so that's led to, I've now spoken all over the world in 30 plus countries. I've built 5 different multi-million-dollar businesses. I advise companies to advise their boards now. So you have just this unique business experience working with leaders and with the customer base and business models and compensation behaviors and the whole thing. And so I remember listening to an audio series by a guy named Jim Rohn. And for those of you that don't know Jim Rohn was Tony Robbins' mentor, to kind of give you an idea. Tony Robbins is kind of the GOAT, right? And Jim Rohn had all these great speakers on his stage. And he said after one of his seminars, he stands up and he says, "We now have enough testimonials and enough personal experiences to conclude that it's possible to create and to design an extraordinary life." And my guess is a podcast like this would catch some of you wondering if it's possible for you. Just like I wondered if it was going to be possible for me, back, as I was going through that grinds phase of my business. And my friends, here's what I want to share with you is now I get to, from my own personal experience and like from my own testimonial, I get to share with you, just like people used to share with me, that your dreams and that your goals are possible, that it's possible for you to create and to design an extraordinary life. And, I'm grateful to be able to now be kind of in the end of that, or at least in the middle of that, saying that I can now tell you from my own experience that that's possible as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I just love your story. It gives me goosebumps because I think, so many of us, we find ourselves in those moments where it's like, is this going to happen for me? Yeah. Is this just some sort of pipe dream? Do I really have what it takes? Am I good enough? What will people do? Are they going to respond? And you put your head down and you go to work for a dream that nobody can see but you. And you do it day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. And then all of a sudden, it's like it just hits, right? It's like the right time, the right place, the right version of you has finally shown up. Yeah. And all 3 of those ingredients are together and things move. And so what I love is, what you're talking about there is, hey, there's people wondering, can I do it? Is it going to happen for me? But what I love about your story, Justin, is what about the people who've already done it, right? And they've hit a certain level of success. And I think that you're proof that you can reinvent even beyond that. You can have a win, you can have an exit, and you're not done. It's not over. You're not a has-been or somebody who used to be relevant. You can retool, you can reinvent, you can grow again, you can build something new and amazing. And so I really love that. Talk to me about the 3 biggest lessons that you learned on your journey. What are the top 3 things that you feel like, man, if I had a few minutes to distill like my 20 plus years now of entrepreneur journey, here's the 3 things I would want somebody to know.
So I'm sure you guys can relate to this. It's sometimes hard to distill to 3. You know what I'm saying? Because there's so many different things for different phases. But let me see if I could use 3 quick ones. The first one piggybacks on what we were just talking about. The first one is to understand the process. The process is really 3 words. There's dream, struggle, victory. So like there's the first section is the dream, then you have the struggle, then you have the victory. And what you want to know about the process, what you want to understand about the process is that they're all equal. So in other words, if you have a big dream, You don't get a small struggle and then a big victory. You like sign yourself up for they're commensurate. So it's like big dream, big struggle, big victory. Now you say, well, I don't want a big struggle. That's fine. You just have a smaller dream, smaller struggle, and smaller victories, but they're all equal. So you can't curse the process when you're in the middle of the grind, in the middle of the struggle, and you're like, man, I have all these big dreams. I want this big victory, and here it is hard. It's all part of the process.
Yeah.
And the first thing I would share with you is this, on this part, is you want to dream big dreams, my friends. You want to dream dreams big enough to inspire you, dream dreams big enough to inspire others. Like, you got to dream big. You got to think that it's possible. In fact, check this out. I was just studying a study, Ian. University of Pennsylvania did a study, 350 participants, 22-year study, spent millions of dollars on it. And they studied the thinking patterns of these successful people. And they found a thinking pattern that they called it predictive of success. Wouldn't that be cool to like, what could I think, right? What's a trait, a characteristic that I could, build that would make me predictive of success? Do you want to know what it was? It was optimism. It was optimism. Like they were positive most of the time. They were optimistic most of the time. They like thought they could pull it off. And then there's two characteristics in the optimism that they found. And I think the way they worded these are so interesting because remember, these are like researchers. These are like academics. They're trying to figure it out. They're probably not entrepreneurs. They're probably more like academics.
Yeah, their brains.
And they said the first one was that they had an unrealistic expectation that they were going to be successful.
Wow.
I think that's so interesting. I'll bet you, Ian, if we went back to your story, I know for sure my story, in those early stages, someone that doesn't understand business, doesn't maybe understand entrepreneurship, doesn't understand you, they're not an expert on you. And my friends, you listening, maybe they're not an expert on you. They would say it's unrealistic. You have unrealistic expectations to think you're going to pull this thing off. What they don't understand is like our level of optimism. We're like, dude, I got this, like what we did what I've accomplished in my life. If you looked at it like on a chart, on a graph of like stats, broken home, no college education, first business fail, below zero, like all that kind of stuff, you'd be like, the odds of this, like the statistical odds are not high. They weren't high. But I had this optimism I was going to be able to figure it out. I had what researchers would call unrealistic expectations I was going to figure it out. The second thing that they said was that they tried new things until they succeeded.
Yeah.
They tried new things until, in other words, like they would bump against the wall. They would like go left, they go right, go over, go under. Sometimes they go right through it. Just like they tried new things. So my first thing I would share with you is this: understand the process, the dream, the struggle, the victory. That's the first concept I'd share. The second one is this, and it ties to that first one, which is persist until. Persist until. My friends, the word until can guarantee your success. So Og Mandino wrote one of the greatest books ever written from a sales perspective, sold over 100 million copies, called The Greatest Salesman in the World, right? It's these ancient scrolls, these 10 ancient scrolls. The third scroll says, I will persist until I succeed. Do you know how long most people persist? Until it gets hard. You know what I'm saying? Until they fail, until someone says no, until they get their butt kicked. Like they persist until a team member leaves, a key client cancels. Like they persist until that's how far they persist. You want to persist until you succeed. That's what they figured out in the study is these guys had unrealistic expectation that they were going to succeed. And the second thing is they kept trying new things for how long? Until they figured it out, until they succeeded. They persisted until. So the second lesson is just this. It's this idea of I will persist until I succeed. I look back at that journey that I've been on, and a lot of these grind that I went through, like that grind section, that struggle section, I'm like, man, how did I get through that? And you want to know what I did? I literally just kept going. I don't even know how. I know that sounds so simplistic, but it's like left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. Yep. I just didn't lay there and bleed and just forever.
Yeah,
I got
back, and you look back and it's like you don't even remember going through it, but it was years, right? Because that's what we were doing. We were following the process, right? Just one foot in front of the other. I love that.
And to your point, there's not a lot of folks that are going to see it. My mom didn't see it. My brothers didn't see it. My friends didn't see it. Fortunately, my wife believed enough in me that she was like, hey, you keep going. You're doing fine. Like you'll get there. But sometimes you have to have courage before you have the confidence.
Yeah.
Because like I tell people, confidence is the foundation of success. So imagine you have a foundation. That's confidence. Like I can do this. I believe in myself. Well, what do you say when you're like, I'm not even sure I believe in myself? You know what I'm saying? Well, dude, below the foundation in the roots is courage.
Yeah.
And you lean into your courage, and if you lean into courage long enough, you do the video when you don't feel like doing the video. You show up and give the presentation when you don't have a ton of confidence that you're going to do a great presentation. Like you lean into that courage. The courage will ultimately build the confidence. The confidence will build the foundation to build the rest of your business, right? So third one, real quick, is I would update your belief system on failure. So I would update your belief system on failure. Here's what I would share with you. We've been trained our whole life to believe or to feel that failure is basically bad. It's something to be avoided. So for example, you didn't want to fail in school because you didn't want to get the F. You didn't want to fail in not making the sports team. Or if you were on the sports team, if you missed the key shot. No one wants that. And by the way, in our careers, think of it this way. You don't want to fail in your career. You don't want to get fired. Because if you get fired, you can't feed the family. If you get fired, you can't pay rent. If you get fired, you could have your whole life fall apart. So you don't want to fail. And we also think of she's a failure, he's a failure. It's it becomes a little bit part of your
identity.
I'm a failure, right? So failure is not a person. Failure is an event.
Yeah.
So these are some quick things you can think about with your identity. Failure is not a person. Failure is an event. And my friends, failure is not final. Failure is fertilizer, and your success will grow in the fertilizer of failure. That's actually how you get there. Is you persist until you just, in essence, fail, right? And then try again, and then you fail and you try again. But I've done a lot of working with John Maxwell, and John's wrote a book called Win or Learn, and that's the way you want to think about it as an entrepreneur. So imagine there's win or lose, right? Like in sports, one team won, one team lost. Okay, in entrepreneurship, it's you either win, like you figured it out, you won, or you learn. And the way that you learn is by you didn't win, but you learned something and you improved. You learned something, you improved. You adjusted, you adapted. You persisted until you tried something new. You persist until you found the right way to get there. So you're either going to win or you're going to learn. And if you learn, my friends, then you're winning. Yeah. So this failure is part of the process of success. Yeah. Versus it being something to avoid. It's something that you kind of lean into of hey, that didn't work. Let me improve here. Let me improve there. And Ian, I know you can relate to this. I remember some of those early presentations, early conference calls, early invites. Oh my gosh, they were so bad. It was dude, I could tell you stories that are just brutal. How did you get good at it? By doing the ones that were terrible. They were just so bad. People heard them. They're like, what is happening? That's how you lean into it, is you improve. You either win or you learn. If you learn, then you're winning. Yeah.
Failure is something to be gone through, not to be avoided. If you avoid failure, you're not going to have very many wins, right? Because everything worthwhile is on the other side of not being very good at first. I love it. And I love the part on the process, right? The three pieces, right? The dream, the struggle, and the victory. And they're all equivalent. And so many people have a gambler's mentality, right? A gambler wants to put in a little and get out a lot, right? And says okay, I'll pay a little bit of a price. I'll have a little bit of a struggle. I'll make a little bit of a sacrifice as long as my win is disproportionate. And that's not how the world works, right? Your victory is going to be proportionate to the struggle that you go through, which is going to be proportionate to the dream. I've never heard it put that way. That was amazing. So I live in Florida, and I'm on the West Coast on Siesta Key. Live in a beautiful beachfront home, but I love going over to the East Coast to Fort Lauderdale and Miami. And I was in Fort Lauderdale recently, and they have the huge yachts there. It's really shallow on the Gulf Coast, but on the East Coast, it's really deep. So that's where the big yachts are. And I saw a huge yacht. It's one of the bigger ones that I've seen there. And the name of the yacht, Justin, was Pipe Dream. And I can only imagine this is what this guy was told, right? I don't know what he did. I didn't bother Googling to see. But he named his 150-foot yacht Pipe Dream. Somebody said, hey, this isn't going to work. This is just, you're just blowing smoke. This is not ever going to happen. But somebody needs to have the courage to believe in that unreasonable outcome, that unreasonable goal, like you talked about, right? And so that was really moving to watch it. Here's a guy who said, let me tell you about that pipe dream that you all discouraged me from pursuing, probably talked bad about me, made fun of me. But here I am. My yacht has a yacht in the yacht and a helicopter, right? And so talk to me about the number one failure that you experienced along the way, because it's part of the journey, and what you did to learn from that and grow through it.
Man, again, there's so many. There literally is so many. But a super obvious, very painful one for me was when that first business failed. I like literally had like grown man tears just rolling down my face. I had these 2 little babies. My wife was pregnant with our 3rd child. I was just like, oh, geez. And I felt like a failure, meaning I was like, my friends are gonna be like, hey, how's your business going? And I'm like, it doesn't exist anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like I failed, like it didn't work, you know? And what was even more frustrating is I was like succeeding at some level. And then now
it wasn't just a failure. It was a win that then redirected.
And I went back. I remember I went back and got my old job back. So I had the sales job, the Bible video job. I went and got that job. I went and like tail between the legs. Hey guys, can I come work for you again? They're like, I thought you're going to be so successful in your thing. And you're like, well, oh my gosh. Well, here's what happened. And I remember it was on December 22nd. By the way, I was living literally. So I was paid in this job. It was paid weekly. So it was paid every Friday. And because you would sell and then turn in your sales, you'd turn in your orders basically, and then you'd be paid every Friday. And I needed the Friday checks. Like I was just in this situation where my business had failed. I was in this weird financial situation where, again, back on credit cards, back on taxes, moved out of where we were living into the loft of my wife's parents' garage, and I like tail between the legs, went back on this job. So I pull up to the mall. I literally could show you the stall at the same mall today, right? I pull up to the stall. It's December 22nd in Salt Lake City. It's rain. It's snowing super, super heavy. I like pull in to go to this mall shift at 3:30. I'm there probably 3:20. And my phone buzzes right as I pull in. And so I pull the phone out and it's my manager. I go, hey, what's up? He and I have been working together for 5 years. We were friends. And he says, hey, I need to have a conversation with you. I'm like, cool. What's going on? And he goes, I need to let you go. I said, you need to let me go where? And he goes, I need to fire you. And I go, fire me for what? You guys gotta understand, I come back for 3 months because my business had failed 3 months earlier. I've become the #1 sales guy in the entire company for the whole year in 3 months.
Wow.
So it wasn't like I came back and was terrible. I picked it right back up and kind of got going again. And he goes, I need to fire you. And I said, why? And he said, because the president of the company doesn't like that you're doing something else. I said, dude, when I'm doing my job, I only do my job. I don't talk to anyone about anything else. I just focus. He's like, I know, but he thinks that, he doesn't like it. He basically was like jealous of the business I was building. And I said, it's Christmas. It was December 22nd. I said, it's Christmas. I was like, you can't fire me during Christmas. I go, I'm the #1 guy in the whole company. Like I go, I'm adding value to the business. Like I'm helping people. I have a good attitude. And he goes, they told me if I don't fire you, they're going to fire me.
Wow.
And it just hurt so bad because I felt like they kind of did me dirty at that point. Like kind of like I think they knew I was in a tough spot and just kind of I'd come back to be like, okay, I'll give up the other thing. Just let me come back, And here's what I would share with you, my friends. Convert the hurt. So you convert it from pain to fuel. Yeah. Because it hurt. Like I'd be lying to you if I told you it didn't hurt. When people are like, just don't listen to people. Like, doesn't matter what they say. And you're like, okay. But the truth is it really hurts. It hurts when you get torn down. It hurts when someone says, hey, you're an idiot. You're like, who do you think you are? It hurts. But you want to convert it from pain to fuel. Like a solar panel converts the rays of the sun, the energy of the sun from like solar energy to like electrical energy. Like it converts it. A wind turbine does the same thing. A water turbine it converts it. So you want to say that pain that you feel when people tear you down, or that pain you've been through in your life, you know what I'm saying? Like the upbringing and the challenges and the divorce and the finances and all the stuff you've been through, that whole struggle section, instead of like that being something that is the reason why you're not going to succeed, that becomes the reason why you are. Yeah. Like you convert it from pain into like, I'm going to let this guarantee my success. I literally remember thinking to myself, I'm like, I'm going to freaking succeed. I'm just like, I'm not. And it took me longer than I thought it was going to. It wasn't like the next day I figured it out. It took me years still, but I was like, I'm not going to let them have the last laugh where they see me and they're like, how's your little thing going? I'm like, no, dude, my little thing is not a little thing anymore. Like I turned it into something, So I would just encourage you guys to convert the hurt, turn those pains to fuel, take those failures and make those reasons to keep going versus reasons to quit. Because there's always reasons to keep going and there's always reasons to quit. Yeah. And there's always both. You choose will define you.
Yeah. What are you going to focus on, right? There's always good. There's always bad. What are we going to look at? What are we going to dwell on? Where are we going to draw our energy? I love what you're talking about, convert the hurt. So that's similar to an idea that I've taught for a long time called the greatness ecosystem, right? Which is life's going to throw things at you, good, bad, and otherwise, right? And it's what are we going to do? You're talking about take that pain and convert it into fuel, convert it into energy, convert it into positive momentum, right? And if it doesn't get converted, it remains in its state, and it ends up turning into emotion, right? We either convert to fuel or it converts to emotion, negativity, shame, guilt, feeling bad about ourselves, doubt, wondering if we're good enough. So we're all going to have those things, right? We're all going to have those challenging moments. We're all going to have those times when something isn't done right to us. We're all going to have those failures. But what are we going to do with the energy? Is it going to convert into fuel, or is it going to convert into emotion and other wasted energy, right? That doesn't move us forward. It's so, so good. So, Justin, the world is going wild out there, right? We've got Chinese spy balloons, and we've got trains coming off the tracks. So be careful at your local railroad crossings these days. You got chicken coops on fire everywhere and all sorts of stuff. What do you do about all this going on out here right now? Like, there's people watching. It's, recession this, recession that, all this bizarre stuff. Like, what is your advice to somebody to rise above all the garbage going on that's meant to distract us, to derail us, to destroy us? What are you doing right now personally? What would you tell people that are listening to take what's happening right now and to turn it, to flip the script, to take the things that should have distracted you and to focus you? What would you say there?
Yeah, let me give you the framework of where my head's at, and then I'll give you some practical things that I do that I think could potentially add value to you. So the framework is this. It's what I call E plus R equals O. And I didn't invent this. This was, I don't even know who originally thought of the concept, but it's E plus R equals O. So it's a simple formula. It's event plus response equals outcome. So event plus response equals outcome. So 3 quick lessons you can learn from E plus R equals O. Number 1, E doesn't equal O. So the events don't equal the outcomes. So in other words, what happens in the events of our life don't equal the outcome. And it's because you actually get to own the R. You get to own the response. So you're not victims of the events. You're a victor of your response to the events, because you get to own the gap. Viktor Frankl, as you guys know, wrote Man's Search for Meaning. He and his family put into the most awful, terrible, darkest time in human history, put into a Nazi concentration camp. And he said of all the things they took from him, what they couldn't take was, he called it the gap. And it was his response. It was the way he chose to respond. That's what we get to own. You get to choose your response. So first thing is this, just own your response. So second thing is this. You'll notice the R is not react, the R is respond. Great leaders don't react, great leaders respond. You want to step up as a leader, as a leader of your family. By the way, a leader of yourself, leader of your family, leader in your community, leader in your churches, leader in your business. You want to step up right now and say, how am I going to choose to respond to all of these events? And then the third thing is this. Your R creates an E for others. So your response will create events for other people. So the way you choose to show up right now will create events for other people. If you choose to show up with a ton of fear, doubt, and uncertainty, you'll create events of fear, doubt, and uncertainty in other people. And you're a leader, so you'll really affect them, right?
Yeah,
if you choose to show up with a lot of like confidence and courage and commitment right now, you'll really positively affect people. So that's the first thing I'd share. The second quick thought is this. Where my head's at from a business perspective is what I call add a zero mode. So, man, this is what I encourage you guys to be thinking about, add a zero. So add a zero to your net worth in the next 5 years. So if you're worth $100,000, you come out of this thing worth $1 million. If you're worth $1 million, you come out worth 10. And if you've done really well, in your case, you go add a zero, you come out, you got a couple $100 million net worth. Like, it's pretty awesome, right? So point is, you want to be in add a zero mode. When you hear recession basically means everything's on sale. When you hear tough economic times, it means everything's going to go on sale. And so if you play your cards right, you kind of get your head right. I'm going to own my response, number 1. Number 2, I'm going to be strategic and add a zero for these next 5 years. There's what's called a greed fear index, right? So when fear is low in the world or in the economy, greed is high. People are like, man, we buy all these stupid things because fear, this is never going to end. Like, fear is so low, right? When fear increases, people are like, man, I'm super nervous. Guess what happens to greed? Greed goes down. Well, that's good for you as a wise business person. So that's the first thing. Now, some super practical things I do. I've deleted all news apps off my phone. I don't watch the news. I can't even tell you at the time I watch the news on TV, but all of it stuff's off my phone. I'm very protected at what goes into my mind. I avoid my phone for the first hour of the day. Now, when I say avoid it, let me be fair. I'll listen to audibles, like an audible book on tape, like right when I first wake up. But I'd avoid all text, all email, all social media, all that kind of stuff. Third thing I would encourage you to be thinking about is to be a creator, not a consumer right now.
Yeah, so good.
So a consumer, someone that goes to social and consumes the content, watches someone else's video, watches someone else's post, what they wrote, maybe listens to the podcast. I would encourage you to be the creator of the podcast, be the creator of the video right now, and have that new voice. Like my just to give you an idea, like my Facebook account, this is just my personal account, went from like 35,000 followers to like 510,000 or something like that over like I don't even know, 120-day period or 90-day period, something like that. And you say, man, what happened? What happened was I had a unique voice online. It was like just super chaotic time. And like, I had a really unique, like positive, optimistic, grounded leadership voice. And I think people freaking liked it. And so my point is, you want to like lean in right now to owning your R. If you'll stand out. The word crisis in Greek, which, by the way, economic crisis, political crisis, whatever, they all create crisis, right? The word crisis in Greek means sifter. So a sifter is a separator. Like it sifts the wheat from the chaff. It separates the wheat from the chaff. This is your moment to separate, my friends. It's separation season right now. You can separate yourself from everybody else by being a consumer, or a creator, not a consumer. You can separate yourself by everybody else from not consuming all the news and all that kind of the negativity of it. You can kind of stand guard at the door of your mind. And then you can separate yourself right now by getting into like, I'm going to own my R. I'm going to go into add a zero mode. And that's the mode that I've been in and am in, and, you know, encouraging the teams and leaders and so on that I work with to get into add a zero mode.
Yeah, I love it. So good. So much value here. Justin, thank you so much for your time today. Man, I've got several pages of notes here. I know the people listening do as well. Anywhere people can connect with you as we close, where can they find you online? How can they get a little bit deeper of a dive into Justin Prince?
Yeah, so you can go to iamjustinprince.com. I am Justin Prince on Instagram, and Justin Prince on Facebook, and happy to add value and serve. I put out a ton of content, Ian, I know you do too, to just see if I can serve and add value. It's part of the promise. One of the promises I made to myself when I was struggling, which is if I ever become successful, I'm going to help as many other people achieve their dreams and goals as possible. And Ian, that's one of the things I admire about what you're doing is I feel like in this next season or chapter of your life, you're stepping up at you're looking to serve at even a higher level than the previous season, and the previous season was a really incredible season. So just really admire that about you, and honored to be on, and I'm excited to continue to build a friendship.
Yeah, likewise. I feel, Justin, we're both like turtles on a fence post. We didn't get there by ourselves, right? And that's what it's about. It's about going back and reaching down to the people coming up after you, and helping them fulfill their destinies, right? Their dreams, and many times and in many ways, are tied to our dreams. And when we go and live those things and achieve the things that we've been able to achieve, it unlocks those pathways for others. And that's our responsibility. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us again for another episode of the Byproduct Podcast. Until next time, we'll see you soon.